All right, guys. Hi. So here, what I learned today about micromanaging, and I was explaining to her how I kind of was failing in the last endeavor I have when I went to Iraq, and the people that I was working with. Again, like the situation wasn't the best of situations. Like the employees were pressured aimlessly because the boss was absent. Was the communication between them and the boss? The boss was like there was a vacancy there. It was a complete like no was a complete there was no communication. It was literally like he says what he wants, they say yes. He asks them what's going on, they tell him, and that's basically it. There is no actual communication. And I don't know if there's like I don't think it's an issue of trust. Like he really trusts them, and they are very much like trustworthy. I don't know if it's reliable or not. Again, like I mentioned in a couple of videos before, like the guy is going through stuff, and we all are at all different points, and we have to be more understanding of each other. But like no, weirdly so, I don't think people understand how like the impact that when it comes to work, you kind of need to r- remove everything on the side and just like be able to like adjust to the fact that this is your bread and butter or something like this, or maybe objectively just be able to assess and leave your emotions somewhere else. But it's hard when your emotions are in the right are basically are agitated from work. So what I'm discussing right now is a certain micromanaging conversation that I had with my cousin, and she's been working for 18 years in the actual industry. So we started having a conversation, and she was like trying to, and I genuinely was trying to explain to her what I did and wanting to find out how could I have dealt with things differently because she has experience dealing with people from a working with corporate level, while I kind of have experience dealing with people, just hiring them, contracting them, working in logistics. And again, team management, like I got better at team management, but not really the people that I worked with that were my people. Like my people, I always had an issue with, but when I worked with different teams, I learned a lot. I just could not apply it. And sometimes it's because like the patterns that you get stuck into, you kind of like they repeat themselves, and eventually you look at yourself and you go like, no, you can't get out of them. And I was willing, I'm always kind of like trying to find different ways, but like I never know how much of an impairment I am to the decision making process. Because just because I wanted to do something doesn't really mean that we're all on the same page or we're all talking about doing it the same way and all these things that kind of happen. But anyways, so when I was talking to her and she was like, anytime her boss would start kind of like becoming micromanagerial, the first thing she starts asking him questions like, what is the thing that you're worried about? What are the things that you're kind of like feeling that are out of control? And what are the things that are annoying you? And these kinds of questions, what they do is they kind of highlight to the person what is it he's trying to get out of this micromanagement. Because there's definitely like micromanagement is because they're afraid something is going to be loose. There's a fear. There's either a fear, a lack of trust that the actual project is going to be done. There's a lack of understanding between like the communication helps because like between management and the people that are actually doing the work, if the communication is not solid, then management would feel like they're not really understanding each other. And even when they feel like they're understanding each other, are they understanding each other the right way? And we could like diverge into like multiple different like scenarios where you're always suspicious of something and you kind of feel like you might lose your job or the project will not work or. So all of these things are very much like valid reasons for why people start kind of like anxiously approaching things and in a very like controlling way start trying to resolve the problems, resolve the issues. I keep looking back because I got new litter for the cats, and the cats have been like trying to poke at it. So I don't want them to kind of like open it. So I keep looking back to make sure they're all sitting in different places. There you go. There's one down there. There's one directly behind me. Bliss, how are you? You see the white one? See him? Yes. And there are two inside somewhere. But anyways, now that I pointed my situation out, my environment out. Uh, so these questions, man, like they triggered something in me. They made me like see things in a cute way. They made me look at things in a more systematic way. It's funny because I don't know if I could have asked these questions. And she also pointed that the way I speak is a bit, could offend people. And naturally, my first reaction was, me? Never. But then I believe her, like, that's the truth. But like, my reaction, anyone's reaction, probably be defensive at first. But I really thought that I was actually trying to do something about it. I really thought I was trying to communicate with the guy. But the way I communicate has always been the way that he has been, the way that he has been receiving it was never the best way. Although, like, I don't think I changed the way I communicate from when I started. But then she did point out that, like, if you're talking to somebody and then first you're making the deal, you're signing the papers, and there's clarity, as you proceed into the actual project and the contract, a lot of things happen, personal stuff, non-personal stuff, and they affect, and you can't expect people to kind of like still be engaged. And that's something that I have been missing for so long because I just can't understand it. And the reason why I couldn't understand it is because when I used to hire contractors, I judged them based on the work they did. And now technically I'm looking at people and trying to understand why aren't they judging me based on the work I did. And when I used to work in my restaurant, I judged the people that I worked with based on the work they did. And now I'm kind of like looking at the same shit and I'm like I'm trying to understand why people are not seeing it this way. But just because I am that way doesn't necessarily mean everyone is. And I always knew there was like a different approach to things, but I didn't think it was that different. I didn't imagine it to be that much of a different engagement, bizarre engagement. Although I do remember sometimes when I was not right for what I did. I do remember situations where I could have handled things. I should have handled things differently, but I was like emotional myself. And I pointed at them in previous videos because like that's the learning experience and the learning curve, and me projecting, seeing what's happening right now as what I used to do and trying to resolve it with myself in order for me not to like go through it again and move it forward. But there are different ways for you also to observe the same issue that you resolve with yourself. There are different ways for you to approach them so you can resolve different things. And I think that's the beauty and the focal point of reflection that people discuss. Because like when you reflect on something, you don't reflect on it in one way. You kind of like try your best to like flesh out every single thing, every single possibility. So that the next time it happens, you have already built that experience mentally. Because the first experience you got was a physical one, a real one that introduced you to the idea, that introduced you to the issue, that introduced you to the end result. But then, like, this end result happened because of one way, that one time. And it could happen in different ways in different times. And the goal is for you to kind of like explore all these ways. And having a conversation today kind of like allowed me to understand when people are behaving, what kind of questions you can actually like poke into in order for them to kind of to bring out as much honesty as you can out of them. And it's funny because she insisted that people's biggest fear is to be honest, and I think that's because they fear that if they're honest and they're not heard, it's a lot worse than them not being honest. So they'd rather not be honest. And for me, it's the other way around. Like I'd rather be honest and not really be heard than not be honest at all. But that also comes with like different insecurities and anxieties and different ways. I look at myself and I go like, oh man, why do I feel this way? Well, maybe because you expected stuff and things like this. So I don't know, it's just like it's a good feeling to be able to kind of like see things from a different angle. And I sent an email today to the person that I'm working with on their website, and in the email I was like pointing at that it's always the negative feedback that gives us a lot more. It's always the negative feedback that makes me feel like we are the negative feedback that gives us the the much more valuable like lessons and like understandings. And I wrote it today, and I was actually like kind of proud of myself. And so I kind of felt like the vibe of the day. It's just like the whole day has been just beautiful feedback, and a kind of like good way to like close the what's been happening before now, because like from now till like the different things are happening like every week, different things are happening every day, and we need to find ways to close these loops, these patterns, these projects, these mini projects and many things. And once we close them, we kind of like get over them and we take it a step forward. And as we take steps forward, we basically have to close new projects and open new projects, and we have to keep up. And I think it's a beautiful angle to reflect on what has happened over the past couple of months and where I am right now. And it's a beautiful way for me to kind of like see things differently, like truly absorb the lesson that I learned, the lessons that I learned, and be able to like fully kind of like let go and know that I was heard, right? Like somebody from the outside has heard what I'm trying to like, what I went through, and somebody from the outside was able to kind of like express an objective opinion and through their experience. So, fuck yeah, man. Fuck yeah. All right, guys. Thank you, and later.